The best way to ensure success is to struggle. I know it's so counterintuitive. It sucks. It doesn't sound like it's going to be fun, and it's not. But if you can struggle through whatever it is that you're trying to pursue, you can assure that eventually, if you don't give up, you're going to succeed. That's what we're talking about in this next clip. It's episode 1929 with Louis C.K., Joe Rogan Experience. I'm Coach Colin, coolest high-performance coach in the world. And if you want the absolute best insights to the podcasts and videos you love, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it.
Back then, there was Saturday Night Fever, and all of this is compressed in my head, but Jaws and Star Wars and Rocky and Steve Martin was the comedian of that time. Those were all the golden things that were like killing and making tons of money. Everybody loved those things.
I remember reading that he had decided at one point in time that the audiences liked him too much for being Steve Martin, and then he would go out there and he couldn't get a gauge as to what was funny and what was not because they were just so happy to see him.
Yeah, he did arenas.
Yeah.
And people would just scream.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the same anymore. I mean, it was a good discipline. I think there's truth to that. I think
there's definitely truth to that. I mean, I think it can be navigated, but you're definitely in some very tricky waters. Like, you can still do comedy, and I think what we were talking about earlier, what you do a lot by showing up at clubs where they don't know you're going to be there and just actually working out stuff.
Yeah,
you really do get to figure out what's funny and what's not. Whereas I know guys who have their own crowds who never perform in front of anyone but their crowd.
It's just diminishing returns. It's just not going to be. I mean, you could do that, and your crowd might appreciate it.
You could do it, but you get more out of fucking around.
It's the only way to do it is to go on and do clubs and unannounced.
Yeah.
And start with 0 jokes and, struggle, have a bunch of bad sets.
Yeah.
Get through. Even at the Cellar, people, when they recognize me, they're happy to see me. And then I'm like, well, here comes new jokes.
Sorry.
And they just within because that evaporates.
Yeah.
No one pretends
seconds.
to laugh at you.
Right.
No one will pretend to laugh at you. So the first couple of jokes, they go, what? and I usually would try opening with stuff that's not, this ain't going to get it. This isn't going to work probably. And get them to this level. And I'm like, okay, here we are. I don't want to be here, but this is where, it's like if you're in the gym.
Yeah.
You don't go to the gym to have a good time.
Right.
And you get into like, I'm proud of myself. I'm at the gym today.
Yeah.
But first moves you make, you're like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But so you get through shitty 10 minutes of jokes, and you've maybe got 1 joke. So you do that night after night till you get 10, 20. And then after you get 20 minutes and you've done it a few times, if you have the discipline, you stop doing those jokes and you start again with a new 20.
Yeah.
From nothing. And this is the way I usually do it. I end up with 2 20-minute sets. And then I start mixing them a little bit. And then I start going to stuff in the notebook that never worked and never should have worked, or things I was too scared to try. You know when you write something on your notes for a news comedy set, but when you look at it, you go, I ain't doing that. Like, I thought of it. It sounded good today.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that. I always have a set when I'm developing where I go, you have to do a set that's only those now.
Really?
Only things that you just shouldn't be doing, or things that have gotten silence. It's like this is the last chance for these bits tonight. And no bits that have been getting laughs. That's a rough set. That's a rough set. But if anything makes it out of it,
it's good.
That's a fucking...
Some
of those bits have ended up being the best bit.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. The best bits I have in a special, like the ones that are like, that just kills every time, that started with silent, hate it.
It's wild. It's such a wild process.
Yeah.
The beginning to the end. When you write, do you sit in front of a computer, like specifically trying to come up with material?
Never did it.
Really?
I never wrote jokes, ever.
Do you write ideas? Or do you just write bullet points?
I write it down like one word, because I need to write on stage. It doesn't, if I write off stage, it comes out writer. And then it's like you're using your hand to write, and then you're using your eyes to read it.
Yeah.
And then it's coming out your mouth.
Right.
So when I have an idea, that moment where you go, oh, it's a bit. It's fucking maddening, but it comes when it comes. you're in conversation or you're in the car or wherever.
Yeah.
You go, fuck, that's a bit about whatever, about zoo lions.
Yeah.
And I avoid thinking about it. I don't want to work it out. I just write down zoo lions, and I know that it's in the ether. I know the general feeling, and I wait till I'm on stage that night, and I explain it to them. And the audience is there as a target.
Yeah.
So I for the first time work it out, and then it's like that's the bit, because I know I can't think straight as a comic unless I'm on stage.
Did you?
Wow. Well, I let that clip run a little long because I'm in love with stand-up so much, and this like just I gotta get on stage. But towards what he was saying, struggle. David Goggins, what did he do? He got his ass kicked by his dad. He couldn't run a quarter mile. Cam Hanes remembers when he couldn't run a quarter mile, but he pushed himself and he pushed himself. Cameron Hanes remembers remembers when he couldn't even run 1 mile. He actually entered a race that was 10 miles and he ended up quitting. I think it was like a 10K race, not even 10 miles, 6 miles. And he dropped out. Joe Rogan gets bullied, starts doing MMA, or not MMA, starts doing martial arts. You see, struggle, pain. It's the precursor before they became the person who they actually are. And I keep talking about it, and I've said it time and time again in videos. If you're a returning viewer, you've heard me say it before, man. It's like that was the precursor to their greatness. And it's like, what have you gone through that you maybe just decided like, this was just pain and it sucked. But in reality, it was a precursor to somebody who you could be. Or you're going through something right now and it's painful and there's struggle, but you don't realize it's the precursor to who you could be. Like it's like a plant. It's like not to be soft, but you're like a rose and you're trying to grow through concrete. And that shit's painful. It sucks. It's rough. It's damaging. It doesn't feel good. But once you get beyond that fucking ground, you're out. And you get to blossom into something. Whatever frilly flower you'd like to be. Whatever flower you are. You can be a pink one if you want. That's all good. You can be a pink flower. But you know what I mean, man. That's the thing. It's the struggle. You see how these guys, Louis C.K., he's talking about a self-imposed struggle that he puts on himself. Self-imposed. David Goggins, when David Goggins sees that it's snowing outside, or it's a blizzard, or it's like a hurricane, what does he do? Oh, I think I have to go out there and run. Cam Hanes, everybody looks at Cam Hanes and says, hey man, you should sleep like 8 hours a day. He goes, oh, should I? Well, I guess I'm going to sleep 3 hours a day. And I'll just make the rest happen. Don't worry about it. Joe Rogan, you see him all the time. Cold plunges, saunas, deadly workouts. You see it all the time. Podcasting live. Like that was a testament to exactly what we're talking about. That's a struggle. People don't do that. When's the last time you seen one of those that wasn't shit? Joe Rogan did live podcasts and killed it every single time for years. For almost a decade, he did it like that. Struggle, because then you get to become the best at what you do. And does it happen every single time with every single person that struggles? No. But you know why? Because there's only a certain amount of people who don't give up. It's a mass amount of people who give up. They feel the struggle, they feel the pain, they feel the hurt, and they use that as their excuse instead of their fuel. And you have to choose which one of those people you're going to be. Are you going to be excuses, or are you going to be fuel? Are you going to stop, or are you going to push through? It's all up to you. But if you already have the struggle going on, mazel tov, bro. That's the best thing that could be happening for you right now. Because that's the precursor. That right when you hit the struggle of whatever you're trying to get into, consider that the fork in the road. Back to exactly what I just said. It's a fork between you stopping and you proceeding. But when you proceed, you have to understand you're going to go into it with more grit, with more strength. And you're going to go into it knowing what it's like to fail. Knowing what it's like to struggle. If you go into something already knowing that the worst that's going to happen is something that's already happened to you, what do you have to fear? Meanwhile, if you give up because of pain, now every single thing you go into, now you're kind of threading because you're like, oh man, is there going to be pain at the end of this? Is there going to be pain at the end of this? And now for you to go into anything, you're going to look for something that has no pain and no struggle. You're going to end up somewhere mediocre, or more than likely less than mediocre, because you're looking for the most comfortable route. I'm telling you, man, if you're already going through a bunch of shit, if your life is already at a point where you're struggling, man, push through towards that thing that's for your highest good, for your family's highest good, for your community's highest good. Push through to that thing, because you have what it takes. Based on the fact that you've struggled, failed, you already have what it takes. That's what it takes. People are always looking for the mystery thing, for the magical sentence, for the magical video. It's not there. You already have it. It's already in you. The struggle and fail is it's the part of the equation that every great person needs. If you already have those two things, you got to push through. I love what he says. It's, again, self-imposed struggle. Look what he does to himself. He makes sure it's a bunch of jokes that are all shit. He makes sure it's a bunch of things that get no laughs. And who is he today? He's Louis C.K. Yeah, he did some fucked up shit, and he had a little bit of he had a little hiatus because of what he did. But if Louis C.K. doesn't do that, if he doesn't do that thing that he did, you know what I'm talking about, the weird thing he did. If he doesn't do that right now, if he's not already Dave Chappelle level, he certainly would be. And even today, despite all of that stuff that he did, he's still in the conversation of one of the greatest comedians of all time. Dave Chappelle, struggle. Started when he was 14. Clubs, shitty gigs, people stealing jokes. Pilot Boy, Dave Chappelle. If you look into his company, it's called Pilot Boy. Why? Because before the Chappelle Show, the show that every single person fucking knows, before that show, he had pilot after pilot after pilot. And pilot's just like a test run for a show idea that you have. He did at least 100 pilots. Then hit Chappelle Show. Struggle, fail, struggle, fail, struggle, fail, Chappelle Show. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, man, I know maybe you're not Dave Chappelle, maybe you're not this grandiose, huge name, but you're you. And if you can struggle and fail and keep going, you will become the greatest version of yourself. You'll become the Dave Chappelle version of yourself. Just don't give up. All right, I'm out.